Well, we are watching World War III unfolding right before our eyes. This afternoon, Germany says, well, we need to prepare for war across Europe. So that's great news. And just a few hours ago, take a look at your screen here, new video emerged showing the amassing of hundreds of Israeli armored vehicles and tanks ready for the ground invasion of Gaza. Just look at this. Just look at this. You know, when people say, oh, you know, Israel doesn't have a lot of tanks. Okay. That's a lot of tanks. That's a lot of armor preparing to go in there. And, of course, what are they ready to do? They are ready to, of course, carry out the total destruction of Gaza. That's exactly what they're doing for the ground invasion. They're going to roll over everything. And right now, the United Nations actually says that women and children account for 70% of all of those killed in Gaza. 70% since the conflict began. Women and children account for about 70% of those killed in the Gaza Strip since the beginning of the escalation of the conflict, according to the United Nations. And yesterday, the United Nations voted against a ceasefire. And Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says no to a ceasefire. So no peace is coming. And
now, could you imagine, just imagine for 1 second, if this is what Russia was doing, we would be attacking them tomorrow. If they were doing this and they started a ground force of this magnitude into Ukraine, the United States would be in there.
Yeah.
Why are we not going into Israel? We're pretty much backing this.
No, these are American weapons. These are American weapons that are being used. These are American bombs that are being used. You heard the Raytheon earnings call that I played for you the other day, where Raytheon admitted that the Israeli incursion in Gaza is good for business. So, of course, they're not going to do anything about that. Yesterday, of course, as I mentioned, the United Nations voted against a ceasefire. So, and the Pope has called for a ceasefire. It's not going to happen. Just about 3 hours ago, Iranian-backed Houthi rebels declared war on Israel. So we have that layer now added into this. The Houthi military spokesman says they are going to rain down large numbers of missiles and drones on Israeli cities, promising the attacks will not stop, they say. Listen.
عن القوات المسلحة اليمنية بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قال تعالى فلا عدوان إلا على الظالمين صدق الله العظيم لليوم 25 يشهد العالم ما يجري في فلسطين المحتلة وما يتعرض له قطاع غزة من عدوان إسرائيلي أمريكي غاشم حيث المجازر اليومية والإبادة الجماعية والدمار الشامل والحصار الخانق كل ذلك أمام مرأى ومسمع العالم وبدعم أمريكي غربي لا محدود للكيان المجرم ثم ما يلاقيه قطاع غزة من ضعف النظام الرسمي العربي.
So, sorry about that. He also blasted the United States for funding Israel's butchering in Gaza. Intense fighting is also coming from the tunnels underneath Gaza, where Hamas fighters are launching rocket attacks at Israel. RT actually got some unbelievable access and sent a reporter into the massive underground caves. I just want you to watch a few moments of this, because you're not going to see this on CNN. Here's a reporter going into the massive underground cave structures. Watch.
Sorry, there's no audio.
Oh, okay. Sorry, the audio is missing for some reason, but it says the walls are made of cement in addition to the arched ceilings. These tunnels are have a lot of strength. Look how massive these are. He says the floor is also generally made of cement. And look, do you see how far down he went into these caves? I mean, unbelievable. He said all military activities come from these places, the group confirms. And he says they are highly prepared to deter Israel, says the member of the Hamas unit that gave them this tour. I'm actually really surprised that they would show this. An attack on tunnels that includes brigade members from segments of society, equivalent to a basic mission completed by infiltrating behind enemy lines missions. I'm not exactly sure. But anyway, think about how far down this is. And you can just see like the reinforced walls and the cement structures. Of course, Israel says they've been bombarding these, but they're so far down that they're not causing any damage, it seems. And as Israeli sources have told me, they absolutely do not want to go near these tunnels because they know these tunnels like the back of their hand, and it would be an absolute bloodbath on the part of Israel. Israeli soldiers being destroyed, dealing with booby-trapped tunnels, and it would just be an absolute disaster. So that's what's underneath Gaza right now. Meanwhile, what's going to happen in Egypt? The Israeli plan, of course, leaked last week, has now been spread out all over the place. It's kind of an amazing leak of a document from the Israeli intelligence plan, which is to push 2.3 million people out of Gaza into Egypt. So here is the plan. An Israeli minister in a concept paper proposes transferring Gaza civilians to Egypt's Sinai Peninsula. And as we talked about yesterday in an interview with Scott Ritter, he said, this would be an act of war. I mean, what Egypt would say is that this is an act of war. Watch.
Well, first of all, the move into Egypt, I believe, is a non-starter. I think that's an act of war. Egypt would view it as an act of war. And, Hamas doesn't have any tanks. Egypt has hundreds of them, modern tanks. And they have 2 divisions that are being brought up to combat readiness on the Sinai. If Israel really does want to commit suicide, this is one really good way to do it, because if Egypt sends 600 tanks into the Negev, Israel's got no response.
So Egypt won't stand for it. But why are they building a field hospital on the Egyptian side? This is in northern Egypt, right near the Rafah border crossing. According to the Turkish press this afternoon, Egypt is building this large field hospital near the border. So they're anticipating something. I mean, shit is hitting the fan as we speak, and sort of moment-to-moment updates. We'll have more on this in tomorrow's show. Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.